And here we go.
Sports!
I listen to you guys all the time.
It's awesome.
I'm in the mood for one of your classic anecdotes.
Give yourselves a round of applause. All right, that's enough.
Hey guys, there is someone I want you to meet.
Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun on Off the Hook Sports. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net.
We're all part of the same team here.
Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
We are loaded up on the program. No offseason when it comes to college football. I've said it before. The NFL mastered it, and I think college football is falling in line. There's always news to talk about. Summer workouts for Tennessee. Also, we'll get to a couple of different facets of this. The lawsuit that has been settled, and we'll dive into it. We'll give you our thoughts, and we'll get your thoughts as well. I'm curious if the average fan is any different about his fandom with athletes now being paid actually by the university. Amateur sports no longer. That's over. So some would say it's about time. Some would say that, man, it's just not the same. Also, Joey Aguilar, like Hendon Hooker, that according to a national analyst, stat of the day, we'll have this day in Tennessee sports history coming up. And who would make the better senator, Bruce Pearl or Derek Dooley? They're both considering running. At least that's what we've been told. I don't get into politics a lot, but Caleb, I look at Tommy Tuberville and I think to myself, man, he was definitely helped by the fact that he had a public face. And I've often wondered, it's probably that ship has passed now, but Philip Fulmer, if he would have been a good congressman, I kind of thought at one point he might do that. Actually,
that's kind of interesting. Philip Fulmer, I could see him. Philip Fulmer is much better of a politician, I guess you could say, than a lot of other coaches in Tennessee. Like, for instance, I love Johnny Majors. He never could have run for Senate. You kidding me? He'd be way too brash and honest. And but Fulmer, I could see it. The thing, I mean, Tommy Tuberville has worked out for Alabama. You know, we would talk about Bruce Pearl versus Derek Dooley. The funny things are they would both run as Republicans. Georgia is a bit of a purpley state, whereas Alabama is obviously a red state.
What does purpley mean?
It is basically it's a swing state. It can go red one election, blue another. Depends on things. That's where Derek Dooley would run. Bruce Pearl would run in Alabama. I think Derek Dooley's more to the right politically than Bruce Pearl. So I actually think even though Bruce Pearl is still conservative, I still think it would work better for them if Bruce Pearl ran in Georgia and Derek Dooley ran in Alabama. Funny enough. But
what are your thoughts just in general of former athletes or former coaches being involved in politics? Heath Schuler obviously did that.
I think it depends on whether or not it's a vanity project or whether or not they care about what they do. Tom Osborne did it in Nebraska too. The problem when you do it, and Tom Osborne admitted this, it's like, you know, when you're a head coach, you pretty much dictate everything happening in your program. When you're in Congress, you're one of 535 people, and you can't really dictate things that are happening in the country the way you can as a coach of a program.
Yep, there we go. All right, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. We greatly appreciate that. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, as we broadcast from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios on Parkside Drive and West Knoxville. They are East Tennessee's largest volume dealer. General Ursus. Pearl in politics, Pearl would actually make a great president or congressman. He's got that charisma. I will share one quick story about Bruce Pearl a little bit later that I think you'll want to hear. And it came within 24 hours. I don't remember exactly of when he was fired. He was scheduled to speak at a function that I was the MC at. And honestly, I didn't think he was going to show. But we'll discuss that a little bit later in the program. He did, which was pretty impressive. All right, let's get
Put it this way. Pearl's ruthless enough to be in politics.
Well, that's very true. Could there be any secret recordings in his political future? All right. So the House settlement, how should the Vols spend their money? Today's tough question brought to you by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. I've been thinking a lot about this. And Caleb, I have trouble not spending the lion's share on football. And I don't know how this is going to shake out with schools across the nation, but I don't think this is good for women's sports. I don't think this is good for non-revenue sports. And we'll dive into all that. But first, what's your initial reaction to the House settlement? 20 mil to all of your athletes. I want to be really clear because we're in football country that people automatically think $20 million for a football team. No. That's all of your athletes. So how should the Vols spend their money? Today's tough question brought to you by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
Today's tough question. Boom. You heard that. Now take it. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun.
All right, here we go, Caleb Calhoun. Let's dive into this. How should the Vols spend their money? To me, you got to spend 90% on football, 10% on basketball, and then everybody else has to kind of make an argument. I mean, football is your revenue generator. Now, it's going to change from school to school. Like a North Carolina or Duke would spend more on basketball maybe than Tennessee would, but I have trouble believing that it's going to be significantly different. I think this means a lot less athletic opportunities for college athletes.
Well, they can still make their NIL money on the side. So it's like this isn't going to stop them from making NIL money. But in terms of what can be spent on the school, on the athletes, I mean, I'm kind of with you. I think 90% football, 10% basketball. Maybe you do 9% basketball, and then you take the 1% and say, all right, let's just figure out. Maybe we'll buy a women's basketball player here or a baseball player there, something like that. And so
David says football 50%, basketball 20%. Women's basketball 5%, baseball 20%, softball 5%.
I would not. Baseball 20% is an insanely high number. That's just way too high. Sorry, you can't spend 20% on baseball. And
yeah, go ahead.
Particularly when you're only spending 5% on women's basketball, you can't spend 20% on baseball.
Well, I'm going to dig up some budget numbers, and we'll have that on the website a little bit later today. But to give you an idea, the spending, the revenue generating was 90% football last I checked, about 10% basketball. That's how lopsided it is. The women's basketball team regularly reported breaking even. Well, that's because the football team wrote them a $1 million check and at the end of the year, and that clarified the $1 million deficit. Caleb, I can dig some more numbers up, and I will, but it's kind of like you spend the vast majority of your earnings on your home. I think there's a similarity there.
Yeah, no, there's a total similarity. You spend the vast majority of your earnings on your football program. That's the revenue generator. Like you said, your home, for most middle-class people, your home is the ultimate ticket to generational wealth. So you're going to invest more on that than you will anything else that you have in your life. And football's the same way. I'm going a step further, though, beyond just football, Dave. I'm questioning how they should spend the money within the football program, because I think they should dedicate 90% to football. But you ready for my crazy take?
Tell you what, let's tease it. Today's tough question brought to you by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Why Banks and Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks and Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks and Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com. Let me get your why Banks. My buttons are all messed up. All right, let me get your crazy take.
I would spend 90% on football, and I wouldn't spend a dime on a quarterback. And the reason being,
because you got burned by Nico.
You got burned by Nico.
You did.
I did, yes. But I also think I've kind of come to grips with the fact that if the quarterback has the basic minimal skills necessary to play in Josh Heupel's offense, then it's much more important to have the elite skill players everywhere else. And that quarterback's going to put up video game numbers no matter how good or bad they are, honestly.
Well, in all reality, you're going to have to spend something on a quarterback, or you're going to get the absolute bottom of the well.
Hey, I mean, maybe, okay, 100,000 on a quarterback, call it a day. I'm just saying, I wouldn't spend much. I would find the quarterback that hits the minimal skill set I need for them to be good. And I would make sure the rest of my money went all the way around to all these elite players. Now, some people are talking about a school like Mississippi State spending most on baseball. See, Tennessee can't do that. I actually think that's smart for a school like Mississippi State because they're never, ever, ever going to win anything in football. So the idea could be like, hey, if we make us like the baseball institution and make it the fun sport, we could actually make that a revenue generating sport if we go all in on it. And that's like a Moneyball way of thinking.
Yeah, I don't know that I've thought about that. I don't know that they would ever get to a revenue generating position.
I think it's possible. It's debatable, but it's possible. The other part of this house settlement, and this is kind of the interesting one to me, is what about the money you spend on coaches? Because that's obviously not part of this. You can spend whatever you want on coaches. And my problem with that is, what if a school decides, Dave, we don't want to spend a bunch of money on a coach. We'll hire a coach on the cheap so we can, shouldn't they be allowed to have more of that money then to spend on players, more than just $21 million?
Well, they can spend as much as they want to still on coaches.
That's my thing. Exactly. How come they can spend as much as they want to on coaches? Because I think there should be a carve-out exception of if you spend less on a coach, you're allowed a little bit more to spend on players if you want. And then I think schools, smart ones, will spend less on coaches and more on players, because we've learned over the course of the past 20 years, talent is more important than coaching, even in college football, to winning a championship. It just is. I mean, Ed Orgeron won a national title at LSU. So, I mean, talent outweighs coaching. That's my thought on it. As far Tennessee's not going to do that now because Tennessee has Josh Heupel at $9.5 million per year. They're not letting him go at this point. But it's just a thought. From Tennessee's perspective, though, specifically, I just wouldn't spend that much on quarterbacks. I've kind of, again, after seeing Nico last year, seeing what Hendon Hooker did a few years ago, I've kind of come to the thought that it's more about the weapons in the passing game, the interior blocking, and yes, to be successful, having a good defense than it is about the quarterback with Josh Heupel as head coach.
I would, I'm going to differ with you there. I would spend a lot on quarterbacks, but the contracts would be way different. It's not just walk away with, what did Nico walk away with? He got $2 million a year, so he got $4 million to do basically nothing.
Yes, pretty much.
That I'm going to write those contracts a lot different. I think that's what has to change. Here's the thing that you're doing though with this house settlement, and I don't know any way that you can avoid this. By the way, Derek agrees with me. Quarterback, highest value position in NFL. Quarterback, lowest value position in college football per Caleb. He's taking a shot at you, Caleb.
I'm sorry. I know it's a 180 from me last year.
Yeah. I'll tell you what the issue is going to be. You realize we're going to be saying that nasty 4-letter acronym again, NCAA. Because who's going to police when you spend $20.5 million? Somebody's going to have to police this again because you've got another limit on it. I've thought about this a lot. The Wild Wild West, and we were a part of it. You know, we played Cooper Mays and Jacob Warren to be a part of the program, and that's something we enjoyed doing. And I thought was beneficial on all ends. But the bottom line is the Wild Wild West was kind of sort of working, except for advertisers getting burned. And I think that's what pushed this through. Caleb, the Wild Wild West at least didn't have NCAA oversight, which I think we can both agree that we thought was ludicrous, inconsistent, and just all out stupid on occasion.
Yeah, I mean, I think so, but I'm with you. I thought it was working out, but I don't think that we're going to get into the actual details of the settlement. I don't think the Wild West is going to change much. I think you and I both are kind of of the agreement that all they did with this settlement is they're just about to open up even more lawsuits and issues and create more chaos. And Blind Squirrel Sports is 100% right. Spend more money in the trenches than on skill positions. I would actually agree with that too. I just wouldn't spend as much on quarterbacks. I mean, I know that's crazy, but I wouldn't spend as much on quarterbacks. I would load up on the trenches and skill positions, particularly this day and age in football where so many defenses are geared towards being soft and finesse. I would go all in on winning the battle of the line of scrimmage up front.
Look at Georgia. Look at Alabama. Isn't that what they've done in this latest streak that they've been on, respectively? There's not a situation that Tennessee has faced off against against Georgia or Alabama that I thought to myself, they have an advantage in the trenches. Has that ever happened in the past 20 years?
No, and I totally agree. And not even just them. Look at, the top schools in the Big Ten. Look at Michigan. How did Michigan win the title 2 years ago? I know people were going to say Connor Stallions, but beyond that, Dave, you called Michigan in September. Remember, you were like, that team looks like men amongst boys. You were talking about the trenches, weren't you? More than anything else.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
And yeah, they overwhelmed everybody. And I know people are going to point to Ohio State last year being loaded with talent everywhere. Yes, they had skill players, but they were loaded in the trenches too. So
right.
Right.
Where should the Vols spend the money? Fill it in the message board. We appreciate that. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios on Parkside Drive and on Kingston Pike. They are East Tennessee's largest volume dealer. Hot or cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. Are you hot on this? Are you cold on this? Do you like the changes? The House Settlement breaking down we're going to break down some key points. In general, Caleb, do you like what they came up with, or do you dislike what they came up with? To give everybody an idea, the athletic department revenue for the University of Tennessee was last year, it set a record. It was $234 million. So you're only spending, what would that be? That's
10%, less than 10%, maybe 9%.
10% of the money on the athletes. At what point do the athletes say, no, we deserve a little bit more? Is this going to be a constant negotiation? And I will tell you, that's the type of thing that I cannot stand to listen. That and gambling talk on talk radio are the two things I hate hearing about. I hate hearing about how an NFL team's going to fit Micah Parsons underneath the cap, or he hasn't gotten paid and that sort of thing. I don't think that's what people want to talk about.
No, it probably isn't. But it's just how it is now. And on a broad scale, I don't like this settlement because I do think more should be geared towards the players. But I also don't like it because, and I'm going to break down like all the things, this doesn't solve the issue. It is so contradictory that it's going to open up so many other issues. It's going to be appealed, and it's going to open up the door for so many more lawsuits. This isn't the final way college football is going to look. College football is in a state of, and college athletics in general is in a state of perpetuity because there are laws.
Big word. What does that mean?
I guess perpetually changing.
Yes.
And there are laws on the books that contradict each other with college sports, and college athletics cannot possibly follow all the different laws in Congress that have been passed by the federal government. You can't follow the antitrust laws and Title IX at the same time. It's literally impossible. And so that's why this settlement's going to be an issue.
Yeah, this is going to get a lot of massaging going down the pike. I don't think there's any thought as far as this is just the way it's going to be. I just don't think you want every offseason. At what point do we have a strike?
Oh, you will. You're going to get a strike. You're going to get a strike. That's coming. I don't know when. Maybe next year, maybe 10 years down the road. But a player strike is coming soon enough. And we're going to see how that goes. It'll be a team first. It'll be one team that'll do it. I don't know who. I don't know when. I don't know how. I don't know where. But one team's going to do it.
God, I'm trying to think of what team could possibly do that. What team would want to do that? Click the like and subscribe button. Your thoughts. Would that be, do you think for a lot of people that would be the end all be all? I'm done with college football. I liked it because of the amateur status, but once my team goes on strike and I don't have anything to do on August the 30th or whenever the first game is, I'm out.
No, fans virtue signal. Fans virtue signal all the time about this stuff, and they pretend they have principles, but then Saturday comes and their team is between the whites, is trying to go win a game, and on 4th and 1, they're going to care whether or not they convert that 4th and 1, and they're going to be mad at their coach if he doesn't call the right play on 4th and 1. I mean, everybody in 94. I'm not watching baseball ever again. They canceled the World Series. And then baseball had a 10-year run that was its peak 10-year run of viewership of the modern era. So yeah, no, fans are very fake with their principles on that. I'm just going to be honest. They go for the entertainment value more than anything else. Hence the reason professional wrestling is the second biggest sport.
Is it the second biggest sport? Are you sure about that?
Yes, only to football.
Okay. I would like to look that up. What about MMA? Where's that? Here's my issue with a potential strike is you're going to have some people walk away. I think you've already had some people walk away with NIL. I don't know. We can do some research on viewership, but it seems to me like a lot of people have said that, but you don't believe it's true at all.
No, I don't believe it's true at all. What's going to drive people away is an expanded playoff when the regular season games aren't as exciting. Not NIL. I'm sorry, not happening.
Welcome to the program. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. Hit the like and subscribe button. We want you to be a part of it. So go ahead and tell us where you would spend the money. Hot or cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. We dig into some of the key issues with this upcoming bill that has been passed. It just seems like we've gone a long ways in 5 years. It really does. I still remember being at SEC Media Days when they announced it, that they were going to do this, or at least head in this direction. And did you remember that? It was at SEC Media.
I wasn't at that SEC Media Days. That was the year before.
Well, yeah, but the fact that it broke right there, along with, there have been two major stories that broke. Oklahoma and Texas also at SEC Media Days. That's why we'll be there. Hot or cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
That's hot.
All right. Hot or cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. You agree, disagree with this? $20.5 million per school in revenue sharing to pay players. That's going to be via TV deals, merchandise, ticket sales. Honestly, a little bit surprised it wasn't more.
Yeah, I'm cold on this. I mean, honestly, if you're going to start allowing schools to pay players directly, it should be a lot more, because the schools bring in college athletics brings in way more money than that, particularly with the TV deals. I mean, the Big Ten has $1 billion TV deal. So every Big Ten school, I'm trying to do the math, but I'm pretty sure every Big Ten school gets close to like $40 million alone just from TV deals. Oh. And that's just for football.
I gotta agree. I'm cold on that as well. If you're going to pay them, and we could have that debate all we want to, but if you're going to pay athletes, I thought they deserved more. Be real honest with you. I don't want that to sound like I'm contradicting myself. The cap will adjust based off revenue of Power 5 schools. Now, this is a key phrase. Power 5 schools, not your individual school. So what happens when this goes up to 40 or 50 million, which it's going to at some point? Caleb, at what point can, I'm just picking a school at random, the Wake Forest of the world not compete?
Well, they'll be able to somewhat compete, because part of that revenue, a big part of it, is the TV deals that the conferences sign. And remember, that TV revenue in the conferences, they all have to split it evenly. But you are right, because that's for the SEC and the Big Ten. The ACC is a different story. You brought up a great one with Wake Forest. So, like, Vanderbilt will still be able to compete, because Vanderbilt's going to get as much of that TV revenue as Alabama is, no matter how much of a bigger draw Alabama is in a regular year. But in the ACC, Florida State and Clemson, just to save the conference, was able to negotiate where they are going to get a bigger cut of the revenue share next year from the TV deals than Wake Forest. And like, the ACC is now paying out based on what you generate revenue, based on what you generate ratings wise. And so you are right. What happens to Wake Forest? they go by the wayside and they sink into irrelevancy. And as the cap adjusts,
That will
they're
happen.
going to follow. That's going to happen. That's going to happen. There will be another reorganization of conferences in 10 years. Wake Forest is going to be left out. They're not going to be in it.
Wake Forest, I just did some quick Googling. Their athletic department revenue was roughly $85 million compared to $223 that Tennessee generated. Mississippi State, that's an SEC school. What do you think their revenue was?
125.
Oh, he nailed it. It's like 124.7.
Oh my gosh.
Pretty good. But you went over, so if the price is right, you'd be out.
Oh my gosh. Okay. No, we're rounding. Okay, but Dave, remember this with Mississippi State. Like I said, they're going to get an equal cut of the SEC TV revenue, which, oh yeah, it's a bad deal now that Greg Sankey signed, but in 10 years, that's going to change, or 9 years, they'll get a better deal. So Mississippi State's always going to be in okay shape, and Big Ten schools will be in even better shape because no matter how irrelevant Northwestern football is, they're walking away with $40 million in TV revenue every single year for the next 6 years.
But let's hold on a second. Best case scenario, the universities in the SEC get what in the short term, next 5 years?
You talking about from TV?
$40 million from TV?
SEC university. So it's it's about 300 million a year. Divide 300 by 16, and we're talking a little under 20 million a year, like 19 million a year, maybe 19 and a half million a year. But again, that's going to change when the SEC signs its new deal, whenever that is. Now they're stuck in this for a while because Greg Sankey did the most reactionary negotiation of all time for a TV deal, but it's still more, and it's still a better situation than the ACC, which has a lesser TV deal, and the smaller schools in the ACC are going to get less payout, including Wake Forest.
Well, SEC schools right now get about 52.5 million. So that's for full year members. Texas and Oklahoma will bounce up there. They got transition payments, but I don't know, Caleb. That just doesn't seem like a great business model. That almost half of the check that you get, that you're guaranteed to have, that it goes to the athletes. I guess maybe I do sound duplicitous. I see that the athletes deserve more because of the overall athletic department budget, but then I see the TV deal, and if you're depending on that, and the reason that I want to point that out, if you're depending on that, Caleb, then what happens when you go through a Tennessee decade of dysfunction? What happens at that point? Because a lot of Tennessee's athletic department revenue was made by record-breaking donors. It was made by record-breaking ticket sales. The whole thing was record-breaking because they got back on track. But what happens when you dip a little bit? What happens if Josh Heupel's not the guy? Then you could dip into obscurity.
Well, this is because the SEC signed a bad TV deal, like I told you, but that's going to change. I don't think the cap's going to be adjusted anytime soon. I don't think the cap will be adjusted until the Big Ten re-ups its TV deal in about 6 years. So I think you're stuck at 20.5 million for a while. And that's less than a fifth of any SEC school's total revenue that they could pay.
All right. Looking at the message board, we want your comments. We appreciate that. Can you believe that you guys are even talking about college athletes going on strike? If the athletes are allowed to organize into a player union, then the cap is totally, I don't know what the last part was. No, I can't believe it. I hate that we're talking about it, but that's the reality of where we are.
Yeah, they're going to go on strike. I just don't know when, but they're going to go on strike.
I also wonder if you did. My plan is to spend all on football and tell everybody else too bad. Now, that sounds good, but what happens when the baseball team runs off? Let's get to more of the points of the settlement. Diving into the next point, the schools can opt out of taking part in the payments.
Not going to happen in the SEC, but schools don't have to pay the 20.5 million. Yeah, not going to happen.
I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, Wake Forest is not going to. I'm just picking Wake Forest randomly.
Well, Wake Forest is done as a program in 5 years. But yeah, I'm
actually
Mississippi
State. Let me throw them out there.
Yeah, I'm okay. I think because of the TV revenue, Mississippi State will be fine. You just pointed out what they made last year, 125 million, 20.5 million. That's less than a fifth of their overall revenue. Their overall revenue athletically is 125 million. They have to pay out 20.5 million. And we're not even including the fact that that overall revenue doesn't factor in the money the SEC pays them every year from their TV payouts. So they'll have enough money to a certain degree. They're not going to opt out. I mean, by the way, and I'm cold on schools being able to opt out. I don't think they should opt out. I don't think you should be allowed to, and people will say, well, what if they don't have the money? Well, that's on the school at that point. I think the school should have obligations to the players.
Scholarship limits will be placed by roster limits for schools that opt into paying players. I mean, in all reality, what are we even talking about scholarships anymore? Are these guys going to class? I was talking to somebody very involved with Tennessee athletics. Like, are they really going to class at all? I mean, when is the last time you've heard of someone getting suspended for academic shortcomings?
Yeah, it hasn't really happened in a long time. They create fake shell classes for them. This is the only reason this is interesting, though, is because scholarship limits, they haven't set the roster limit yet. They haven't, but like that's going to be a big thing because I think a lot of schools were using with the NIL, we're kind of going the old Nebraska model. If you think about it, Dave, where they were loading up on a lot of walk-ons that they were paying.
Yeah, I almost called you over the weekend because there was an athlete and I couldn't identify who it was because I caught the middle of the interview and the show host didn't do a great job of reintroducing them, as you should always do. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. But Caleb, I was absolutely laughing out loud. They asked this athlete, they said it was a football player. He went to Ohio State. I couldn't identify him. He was on a national syndicated network. And they said, what do you want to do with your major? And he goes, man, I'm all about football. He goes, I'm just all about football. And he goes, I was a finance major and I realized I had to downgrade that a little bit. He just openly admitted to cutting back on academics so he could focus on football.
Well, I mean, it was Ohio State where Cardale Jones said 11 years ago, everybody got mad at him. Remember when he said, why should we go to classes when we're here to play football? Classes are pointless. And everybody got mad at him, but he was right. He was dead right. So I think that, the roster limits are going to be interesting. They haven't settled those yet, but I think that's going to be an interesting way to get around this. For those who don't know the history, by the way, the only reason scholarship limits exist is because of Johnny Major's recruiting class at Pittsburgh that won the national title with Tony Dorsett. He signed like 100 people that year, the first year at Pittsburgh.
NIL deals worth more than $600 have to be vetted by a third party. I will go ahead and tell you, Caleb, not to interrupt. I will go ahead and tell you, as a person who's been involved with NIL, and I think probably the only one to be successful with it that I'm aware of, if I had to go through a third party, I probably wouldn't have bothered.
I am so cold on this, and I think it is in every way a violation of antitrust law. So think about what they're doing here. They are saying an independent third party, which they're calling, by the way, I want to point it out, they're calling it NIL Go, is going to determine whether or not your business is a legitimate business dealing with the company or some sort of pay for play. Now, I'm sorry, there is so many incentives now for this, and this NIL Go organization is going to get corrupted by people who have their own jobs. So they're going to be totally ham-handed on whether or not they agree that this is a legitimate business or pay for play. No, I don't care what the intention is. You're allowed to make money through a third party. You're allowed to make money independently on your name, image, and likeness, independently of the school. There should be no limits of that. I'm pro Wild Wild West. If you want contracts in, fine. But I don't think there should be any government or NCAA agency as a third party sitting there saying, well, we're going to determine if this is a legitimate party or not, or a legitimate business deal. This is a way for them to put more money back in their own hands because they're mad some of it's going to the playoffs.
Minor league for the NFL. Yeah, I think that's pretty much where we're headed. The more and more I look into this, the more I just don't like it at all. And I think you're just putting more rules on the sport, and you're going to have more dumb enforcement that we saw from the NCAA. And it means the NCAA is around a little bit longer, which I was kind of hoping wouldn't be the case. Let's keep going. Hot or Cold brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. NIL Go. College Sports Commission will be operated by conferences independently of the NCAA, created to bring greater scrutiny to NIL deals. I think I know your take on this. That's unfair. It's illegal. So we'll get to the exact amount of money that will go to athletes. Again, Hot or Cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. As Caleb, if you want to weigh in on that, you can. And then the $2.7 billion in back payments to athletes from 2016 to 2024. How in the world does that work out?
Well, I'll get to that in a second. But yeah, the first one, the College Sports Commission, yeah, there should be no scrutiny over NIL deals. NIL deals should be allowed no matter what. I don't care I don't care if you enter into it with a drug dealer. Okay. I'm sorry. You should be allowed to make NIL money, whatever you want to make and whatever they want to pay you. As far as the back pay, I have no idea how they're going to divvy up this back pay. $2.7 billion in back pay to athletes from 2016 to 2024. One, you don't think people from 2015 are now going to sue on this and be like, wait, where's my back pay? I mean,
why stop there?
Yeah. Why stop at 2016? I'm not a fan of this one either. And I'm cold on this because I just don't see any way this holds up in court.
Okay. This day in Tennessee sports history coming up with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
It's a new year, a new day, and Ted Russell Lincoln has an exciting new offer to share. Right now, get a 2024 Lincoln Navigator with 0% APR for 72 months and up to $4,000 in bonus cash. Or drive away in a new 2024 Lincoln Corsair Grand Touring with 0% APR for 60 months and up to $4,500 in bonus cash. It's time to get excited about the ride. Come and see what a luxury car experience truly is at Ted Russell Lincoln Knoxville.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in fire prevention.
And here we go.
This was a huge waste of time, like bringing a married guy to Vegas.
Then there's this guy, the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. Coming up, stat of the day, Bruce Pearl and Derek Dooley mulling Senate runs. I don't know, it just seems odd to me. I mean, why would you? What we've seen with Congress in this lawsuit and coming up 4 downs, brought to you by Ted Russell Ford. We have seen this Congress get involved and make things goofier. I'm telling you, and someone is on board saying that. Where did that? Okay, this is also ridiculous. Yeah, it is. The NCAA can't do anything right. Caleb, this isn't really the NCAA. This is Congress.
This is Congress. I mean, this is Congress, antitrust laws, Title IX lawsuits, the Supreme Court, schools, conferences. I mean, there's just, at the end of the day, the problem has always been with college football. There's no centralized governing body. The NCAA is not a centralized governing body the way people think. There's no centralized governing body. And by the way, that's not the NCAA's fault to a certain degree, because for those who don't know, the NCAA has lost multiple times in court where cases have said you don't have the right to be a centralized governing body. I mean, this all goes all the way back to the 1980s when the NCAA tried to negotiate TV deals for teams. And the Supreme Court said, nope, teams and conferences can negotiate their own TV deals. And so there's just the root cause of everything people hate in college football is there is no centralized governing body, but the fact of the matter is there legally is not a way to have a centralized governing body in college football. It's a weird loophole, and it's weird because it was always amateur athletics associated with a school, with an educational institution. And when you consider that fact, it's a massive money-making business that's associated with nonprofit educational institutions to a certain degree. There's just no way to navigate these waters in a realistic fashion.
I'll tell you what's going to become more prominent. It's the phrase in that same interview that I was talking about earlier, the Ohio State player that I couldn't identify. But anyway, he said they weren't just throwing money at me. They were showing me how they were going to use me. So that get you ready for the NFL thing is going to be more prominent in recruiting. I can guarantee you that. And I'm not sure if that's good or bad for Tennessee.
Yeah, I totally agree. And there's two ways to go to the NFL. And this is the debate we had with Nico all over again, which is that, Dave, if you have a 5-star athlete, would you rather them put up video game numbers in college to become a high draft pick, or would you rather them be developed really well so they're ready when they get drafted by a team in the NFL?
Okay, you have a son now. So say it's your son. What would you say?
I'd go with the video game numbers, because I would say to my son, get the video game numbers, boost your draft stock, and then you can work on developing your skills in the off season, do some camps. And nowadays, most NFL teams, as you know, they're very patient with poorly developed players in the NFL. They find ways to maximize their abilities still. It's not like it used to be, where it's like, if you don't have the right footwork or stuff, you're not going to make it with us.
Here's why I agree with that. I think it's a safer path. Listen, Hendon Hooker is never going to have to buy beer or ask for a job in Knoxville, right?
Right, exactly.
So you at least get that, the bare minimum. You get that, and if you put up video game numbers, as you put it, that you're going to be taken care of down the line. This Day in Tennessee Sports History is brought to you by our friends at Commercial Bank. Commercial Bank, member FDIC. Life made better as, man, the whole college football world changed. What do you make of the timing of it before all the individual media days, conference days?
I think that was the big thing. They wanted to get this settled before the fiscal year ended, which is June 30th. So that's the big thing. They wanted it settled before the fiscal year ended. It is weird that it's happening. It happens the weekend of the Super Regionals, right before the College World Series. But I think the big thing was they wanted it done before the fiscal year ends, so everybody could prepare for this starting this upcoming year.
Baseball is so exciting, and it's grabbed the community and enthralled the community, and everybody loves baseball. And I see more social media. I see as many social media posts about baseball as I do football. Now, I know that's maybe that they're more accessible, that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, Caleb, is college baseball on the chopping block?
I'm not so sure these sports are on the chopping block. I just think they're going to have to reimagine how they approach them with the schools.
All right, there we go. This Day in Tennessee Sports History is now.
This Day in Tennessee Sports History.
It's cool, baby. It's cool.
Now you know, and knowing is half the battle. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Off the Hook Sports.
What do you got, Caleb Calhoun? This Day in Tennessee Sports History is now.
Well, it's a somber day for Tennessee baseball fans as Tennessee lost to Arkansas yesterday and was eliminated from the NCAA tournament and will not be going to a third straight College World Series. However, it was 1 year ago today that they beat Evansville 12-1 to punch their ticket to the College World Series last year, which was their second straight trip to the College World Series and was the first time in history they had made 2 straight College World Series appearances. Of course, then they went to win the national championship right after that.
All right, there we go. That's it's been a pretty good run for Tennessee baseball. And with the quirkiness of the postseason, there's no shame in losing in the Super Region.
You got a national championship. You're there. You're in the running every year. It's stuff like this that's going to happen. You just can't you should be. It's weird to say you should be totally satisfied with where you're at as a program.
I love what Tony Vitello said after the game. Did you see that? I'm not out here for everyone. Implying he's only out.
I did see that.
Out for Tennessee. That was a pretty good comment. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Go ahead and get on board now. We want your thoughts as we change gears a bit and we move to apparently I can't pronounce his name. Okay, so I'm going to let you do it. A national analyst said that Joey Aguilar is like Hendon Hooker.
J.D. Pickell.
J.D. Pickell. There you
go. Yes, J.D. Pickell has recently said that Joey Aguilar is like Hendon Hooker. Now, more like Hendon Hooker than Nico Iamaleava. So let me get to his exact quote. He recently said, here's his exact quotes, and here's what he said all together. Joey Aguilar will have a better statistical season in 2025 than what Nico Iamaleava had in 2024. It's not that hard. Nico threw for 19 touchdowns last year, 5 interceptions, and it was good enough to get to the college football playoff. 2,600 yards, cool. But Joey Aguilar in a down year, quote unquote, at App State threw for over 3,000 yards and 23 touchdowns. Now, the down year part is that he threw double-digit interceptions last year. You've got to cut that down. Joey Aguilar, the thing I love about his game and the reason why I feel extra confident about him at Tennessee in this prediction, he's going to let it rip. Just personality-wise, the way he plays the game is different than Nico Iamaleava. Some of this could have been Nico's first year as a starting quarterback, all the hype, all the expectations at Tennessee. Maybe that wears on a guy, but Joey Aguilar is not afraid to cut it freaking loose. And if you're a Tennessee fan, I think you're excited about that, and you should be because of what he brings to the table. Hendon Hooker, when he was so good at Tennessee, brought a couple of things. He brought experience, check the box. Joey Aguilar, 2, the ability to connect on the deep ball. Again, check the box with Joey Aguilar. So I'm not telling you Joey is going to be Hendon Hooker, but I am saying there are similarities to get excited about and some differences from what you had last year at the quarterback position.
Should Tennessee as a program be able to win if Joey Aguilar is like Joe Milton? We know that the Tennessee's going to win if he's like Hendon Hooker. I mean, he had 5 million touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. But what if he's just like Joe Milton? Should the defense be good enough? Should the running game be good enough? Should the overall, and let's make that today's tough question. Does Joey Aguilar have to be Hendon Hooker for the Vols to win? I think you're at the point where, and listen, I was more critical of Joe Milton than most people. Would you agree with that?
Yep.
Okay. I think with his play, which was middle of the pack quarterback rating in the SEC, I think you should be able to win like that.
Okay. Let's break down Joe Milton real quick, too, because we're forgetting this 2023 Tennessee football team. If Cooper Mays is healthy, they're beating Florida in the Swamp, right?
Right.
Okay.
That would speak to my point, overall roster depth.
Right, exactly. So if Cooper Mays is healthy, they're beating Florida in the Swamp. That means they're going to get to 6-0, and they're going to lose to Alabama at Alabama. So they're 6-1, but they beat Kentucky and UConn, and they get into November 8-1. Now, yes, they lost back-to-back games to Missouri and Georgia, but they're 8-1 in November, firmly in the college football playoff race with 2 big games against Missouri and Georgia. They moved the ball against Missouri, and if Brew McCoy stays healthy, I know they lost 36-7, which looks like a blowout, but if you go back and watch that game, Tennessee kept moving the ball, and the drives kept stalling. If they have Brew McCoy, those drives aren't stalling. And so there is, as crazy as it is, as bad as the blowout was, there is a legitimate argument that with a healthy Brew McCoy, they beat Missouri. And then they're hosting Georgia on November the 18th with a chance to win the SEC East and play for the college football playoff because it was still a 14 playoff with divisions during that time. So, yeah, I think if Joey Aguilar plays like Joe Milton, they can certainly win at a high level because they are deeper across the board this year than they were 2 years ago. Now, the biggest difference is the interior line. We just talked about Cooper Mays being out. Well, Cooper Mays is gone, as is Javonte Spraggins, as is Andre Carrick. So Tennessee's replacing their entire interior line, and that's one of the biggest questions. But yes, no, I think if Joey Aguilar is like Joe Milton, I think 9-3 is still on the table. And if Joey Aguilar is like Hendon Hooker, I mean, let's be fair. I think Tennessee could take one between Georgia, Alabama, and Florida, even though Florida's on the road. I think if Joey Aguilar is like Hendon Hooker, there's a very good chance they take 1 or even 2 of those games.
I think the biggest question is, when you mentioned Cooper Mays and we talked about roster depth, where is this roster now? Because this is year 5. This roster should be fully built. It didn't take Nick Saban longer than 5 years. It didn't take Kirby Smart longer than 5 years. It should be at that point. So if a Cooper Mays were to go down now, this year, I know he's not on the team, who steps in for them? I remember a lot of Tennessee football teams under Philip Fulmer, who was an offensive line coach. I remember a lot of them losing an offensive lineman or two and not really noticing much of a difference. You noticed a big difference when Cooper Mays was out. You noticed a big difference when they had 2 offensive tackles that weren't experienced last year as well.
Yes. There's still an issue where the roster, one, as you know, you can't load up on depth and talent the way Philip Fulmer could back in the day. Just this day and age of college football doesn't allow that because of NIL, funny enough. But I do think you can have enough depth. Now, the question does become, and this is going to be a weird question, Dave, and maybe you could tell me your thoughts, but because Piquel is comparing Aguilar to Hendon Hooker. Dare I say the drop-off from Hendon Hooker to Joe Milton and then Nico Iamaleava had much more to do with the personnel around Milton and Iamaleava compared to the personnel around Hooker? Hooker was throwing to a Biletnikoff winner, had 2 receivers in Tillman and Brew McCoy who could dictate coverage, and had a healthy offensive line the entire year, including one of the great, and arguably the greatest right tackle in Tennessee football history in Darnell Wright. And Milton didn't have the same offensive line. And the second half of the year, he didn't have the receiving core with Brew McCoy out. And Nico didn't have the receiving core because Brew McCoy was hurt, was coming back from injury and wasn't himself all last year. Are we overvaluing the differences between Hooker and then Milton and Iamaleava and maybe not paying attention to the fact that there was just that 2022 team was blessed to not have any injuries around Hooker?
Right. I agree with that because they didn't have any depth. An injury or two, especially in the trenches, and Tennessee would have been in a lot of trouble. But would we both agree that Hendon Hooker on a scale of 1 to 10 as reasons why that season worked out in 2022 is a 10? Would we agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Then where would you put Jalen Hyatt or Darnell Wright?
I'd definitely keep Darnell Wright at a 10 too. Now have Jalen Hyatt at a 7 or 8. I think Squirrel White could have done what Jalen Hyatt did, honestly. That year, I just think he was the starter. But I definitely put Darnell Wright at a 10. I think that pass blocking was, he took Will Anderson out of the game in 2022. Just completely took him out of the game when Tennessee beat Alabama.
Yeah, that shouldn't be forgotten. I would argue that game by Darnell Wright against Will Anderson was better than any game Hendon Hooker played.
I agree. And if we go back and watch that game, Hendon Hooker got outplayed by Bryce Young in that game. Tennessee just won in the trenches and everywhere else.
Well, if not for the drop at the end on the final Alabama drive, they probably come back and win that game too.
Yeah.
And then, so Steve says, will 8-4 keep Josh Heupel off the hot seat?
Yes. Josh Heupel now has bought himself a year because of the Nico stuff, and he can say Joey Aguilar was a transition year. Yeah, it's going to keep him off the hot seat. It will. Now,
I agree with you, but it's ludicrous, that mindset.
Is it though? Again, we're talking about a Tennessee football program that was so bad in the 2010s and also even in the 2000s during the later Philip Fulmer years. It's not like they were immune to going 8-4 at times.
Well, I think Derek brings up a good point. Defensive coordinators and players weren't ready for 2022.
It's a big part of it.
I do think at least through the Alabama game, they caught a lot of people by surprise.
But Josh Heupel's very aware of that. That's why he did 12 personnel last year, as we talk about. And that's why he hired Seth Littrell as an analyst this year. He's working right now on a way to tweak his offense that defenses aren't ready for because he's very aware that defenses have kind of adjusted to what he does.
But he better be. Adam says good offensive lines don't have as many injuries because they don't have guys flying around behind them. I never thought about that. That's a pretty good point. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. We broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. As Joey Aguilar, like Hendon Hooker, is that good or bad? Bank on it. It'd be fantastic, but I don't think it's necessary. Brought to you by Commercial Bank, member FDIC. Commercial Bank, they're fantastic. Life made better.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? we understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
All right, so bank on it. Do you agree with me or not? Brought to you by Commercial Bank. That Tennessee, in terms of Joey Aguilar and what he'll be, does not need to be Hendon Hooker at this point in Josh Heupel's tenure at Tennessee for the Vols to be successful.
No, they do not need Joey Aguilar to be as good as Hendon Hooker to be successful. However, if he is as good as Hendon Hooker, that does elevate their play. You are talking right now with Tennessee, you're talking about a range of 8-4 to 10-2. If Joey Aguilar is as good as Hendon Hooker, which I think he could be, you are talking about a range of 10-2 to undefeated at that point, given the talent elsewhere. And I think that's kind of crazy to think about. But look, put it this way, and I talked about this last week. You know, David, with this expanded playoff, you're going to see 9-3 teams get in soon enough. But Tennessee can't afford to go 9-3 because of their schedule. They have to get to 10-2 if they want to get to the playoff.
I agree. And let's face it, it's going to be really simple. That's how success is going to be measured nowadays, Caleb. Simple as that. It's going to be measured in terms of, did you make the playoffs or not? We're having this conversation about the College World Series. I know it's a different postseason, but I would consider Tennessee's baseball team a success, making the super regional. And regardless of what happens after that, moving forward, it's going to be, did you make the playoff or not?
No, exactly. I totally agree, particularly with a 12-team playoff one more time this year, and then you're going to 16 next year. 16, you are going to, you're going to be expected to make the playoffs more years than not, put it that way, if you're at a school like Tennessee. And most of the years, Dave, you're going to think, playoff is circled in, and you're just focusing, can they get a home game in the playoff? Can they get a high seed? That's going to be the debate going forward, isn't it?
Yep, agreed. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. There's something else I want to dive into with this House settlement. Also, Bruce Pearl and Derek Dooley are going to be congressmen, apparently.
No, senators.
Senators. Well, I mean, congressman's good, too. Saying they turned down a senator?
No, Senate represents the whole state. Congress, you just represent a district.
Yeah,
congressman, not well in the House. Sorry, a congressman just represents a district. A senator represents the whole state. Bit higher quality to be a senator.
Yeah, it's higher, but it still would be pretty impressive if your second career you're in House of Reps.
I mean, yeah. I mean, and look, the pay's pretty good too for those. But I mean, you know, you get a pension, you get a base salary. I mean, I wouldn't complain if I were a congressman. I'll tell you that.
Here we go. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. We have the stat of the day coming up. And also, there's another topic, like I mentioned, I want to dive into with this House settlement. As a whole, do you like it?
No, I do not like the House settlement as a whole.
It's horrible.
I think it's bad. Iowa's team, I'm a little bit more team just open up the market and let it play out. But I understand where they're coming from with the House settlement. I just think that's not going to fix the issue because, again, the problem is there's no centralized governing body of college football. And until the SEC and the Big Ten merge and create a super league where they are the governing body of college football, you're just going to be dealing with this nonstop.
2 minutes off the hook sports.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare. Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at nfc1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
Ginger Power, the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
I'm not at all sure what this comment means. Blind Squirrel Sports says, Bruce Pearl, a senator, if eligible, I would vote for him just to get his rear out of the barn. The barn.
I guess that's Auburn. Well, Blind Squirrel Sports, you're a Georgia fan, so and we know Georgia and Auburn hate each other. So that, by the way, is a bigger historical rivalry than even Alabama, Auburn, or Tennessee, Alabama. They played. It's one of the. If you protect rivalries in the SEC, you got to protect that one. Georgia, Auburn.
Yeah, it's a big deal. I mean, in that area, talking to fans of those schools, there's no question a big deal. The show represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, broadcasting live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. All right, we'll get to coming up in just a little bit. Stat of the day: Bruce Pearl and Derek Dooley want to be senators. Apparently, I don't know why. It seems like I don't know which is grimier, athletics or politics.
Politics, because you have to fake not being grimy in politics. You know, you have to fake like you're not playing dirty, just like coaches do. So I think politics is grimier, but at the same time with Derek Dooley, I mean, what else is Derek Dooley going to do? He needs to do something with his life.
Let's make that a poll question. Let's put it on the YouTube page right now. What's grimier, politics or athletics? And in particular, college athletics, because I get the feeling that most professional athletics are pretty cut and dry, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, I'm not saying they're great people, but they're pretty I don't know, pretty open. I guess there's full disclosure would be the best way to put it. Let's go ahead and get to this day.
What's the bigger lie? What's the bigger lie? When a politician says I'm running to represent you, or when a head coach says I'm here to help kids graduate?
How many coaches do you believe really are altruistic in that they want what's best for the kid, and they want to? I'm not even going to say make NFL players, because if you make NFL players, you help yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But as far as making great individuals,
zero. They don't care. By the way, in the same with how many have you ever seen politicians like launch ads when they run for something, whether it be president or whatever? They're like, you know, I just realized this was happening in the country, and I just knew I had to get my foot in the arena to fight for what's right. I'm like, bro, you just wanted to be a politician. You just wanted the job. Just stop. Like, I want somebody to be like, I'm running because it's a good job. I want the money, but I'll try to do my best for representing you. But I mean, it's a good job. I mean, just if someone said that, I'd vote for him. I'm not going to lie.
I probably would as well. This day in Tennessee sports history. Stat of the day is right now. Stat of the day is brought to you by our good friends, the Hound Dogs of Knoxville. Champions look good in orange. HDKnoxville.com.
Stat of the day. They never lie. Or do they? Stat of the day. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Off the Hook Sports.
All right, Caleb. The dance music, or what kind of music is this called? Like house music?
EDM, electronic dance music. Yeah.
I never knew what that stood for. Electronic dance music is what that stands for?
That's what it stands for.
All right. Stat of the day is what, Caleb?
Stat of the day. After losing to Arkansas in the Super Regionals yesterday, it marks only the second time in the regionals era of college baseball that Tennessee made the Super Regionals and didn't then make the College World Series. Tennessee in Super Regional Series is 6-2, which is pretty incredible when you think about it.
There we go. 6-2.
Mm-hmm. Not record, like actual, like in the series themselves. So they've won 6 Super Regional Series and only lost 2.
Couple of comments from the message board. That Michigan sign stealing fiasco was pretty grimy. Agreed. Get Tim Burchett on the show. He is the man, local congressman, for those that don't know. I've mentioned before that that I kind of, I don't know, made Tim Burchett mad one time.
We're probably not going to have him on the show, guys.
Yeah.
It's probably not going to happen.
He thought I was hitting on his wife or his girlfriend at the time. By the way, Tim Burchett, kudos to him, always with some strong arm candy. Strong arm candy.
Oh my gosh.
He always is done well with the ladies. That's all I'm saying. Again, hit that like and subscribe button. We greatly appreciate that. Let's get to talking a lot of politics today. I hope we're not turning people off. Caleb lines up the show, but we want to dive into now Bruce Pearl and Derek Dooley mulling Senate runs. First of all, before we get to that, it'll be What the H, brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Design. And Caleb, I'll ask you the poll question from earlier. What's grimier? Is it politics or is it college athletics?
I did say politics at first, but I've moved over to college athletics because I actually think coaches lie more in college. I think coaches lie more than politicians. I do. I know that's crazy to say, but I think coaches lie more. And having watched them all now, not the politicians don't lie, but the fake altruism of coaches is worse than the altruism of politicians, honestly.
Coaches and politicians are the same. Pearl is just trying to get a promotion. Some truth to that. And Caleb, who would be the better senator? Would it be Derek Dooley or Bruce Pearl? And I'm going to tell my Bruce Pearl story, which I think I've told you before, but I'm going to relay that once again.
So Derek Dooley, and just so people want to know why we're bringing this up, Derek Dooley is mulling a Georgia Senate run in 2026. He would run against Democratic Senator John Ossoff. And Derek Dooley had a quote recently that in a statement confirming his intent. His quote is, in typical Dooley fashion, Georgia deserves stronger common sense leadership in the U.S. Senate that represents all Georgians and focus on its own results, not headlines. I believe our state needs a political outsider in Washington, not another career politician, to cut through the noise and partisanship and get back to real problem solving. The most vanilla, bland statement anybody ever makes when they run for office, by the way. In terms of who would be,
everybody else isn't doing it right, so I'm going to do it.
Yeah, everybody else is partisan, and everybody else is not focused on results, and everybody else is for headlines. But I'm one of the real ones. Yeah, they all do that. They all do that, and it's just so sickening. I think though, who would be the better senator between the two? I think Bruce Pearl would be the more effective senator. I think Bruce Pearl knows how to be ruthless behind the scenes. Bruce Pearl would be Kevin Spacey in House of Cards.
Well, I haven't seen that show, but I can imagine what Kevin Spacey's like on that show because I know what the show's about. But I'll say this. 2 things I'll share about Bruce Pearl. One, Caleb, for those that don't know that are younger than us, he was involved with in taping a prospect and trying to provide NCAA proof that another school was cheating. If you remind everybody of that, and then I'll share my personal story about Bruce.
Yes, when Bruce Pearl was an assistant coach at Iowa, he was recruiting Dean Thomas, and he secretly taped or recorded a conversation with Dean Thomas where Thomas admitted Illinois paid him money. He turned that tape over to the NCAA. I believe that was 1989 when that happened. Put Illinois on probation. Pearl then spent 10 years at Southern Indiana, and despite winning at a high level, could never buy a Division I job. He was borderline blackballed from Division I coaching basketball, from coaching Division I basketball because of what he did. He got his first job at Wisconsin-Milwaukee, had 4 good years there, and then got the job at Tennessee. And then, of course, in the greatest irony of ironies, after being blackballed for snitching on somebody, he then got a show cause from the NCAA for violating rules himself.
which ultimately cost him his job. So,
cost him his job, yeah.
Here's my personal Bruce Pearl story. So I was emceeing at a charity function, and it was literally the day of or day after that he was fired. At worst, it was within 2 days. And I thought, man, their keynote speaker's not showing up. Would you have thought he would have shown up?
No, I mean, I wouldn't have even shown up. I'd have been so petty, I wouldn't have shown up.
No, me neither. You don't have anything invested in the community anymore. So remember that part of it first. And remember the second part of it is that you got to be down. I mean, you got to be really down. And so sure enough, he did show up. So that alone makes me think that he would be a better senator than Derek Dooley, who I think was king of the blaming everybody else. All those dumb press conference things that he said, Caleb, all of those, well, they were prompted by me. They have two things in common, but all of those also were ways of deflecting blame, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I totally agree.
Being a funny guy or being outspoken, that would cover up the fact that he was a terrible coach.
I think here's the other part. I mean, Derek Dooley, I'll say this much about Derek Dooley, and I'll say this in his defense more than Bruce Pearl. Derek Dooley's more authentic in press conferences than Bruce Pearl. Is that fair to say? Bruce Pearl is a colorful personality, but it's all calculating. It's all he's thinking things of how he's approaching this, right? Whereas Derek Dooley, I think as much of an unlikable person as he is, and he was unlikable, he was his authentic, unlikable self, right?
I hadn't thought about it like that. I guess I would tend to agree with it now that you brought it up.
Yeah, he was authentically unlikable. I don't know, and I'll be honest, I don't know what would sell better in politics now. Would Bruce Pearl, because we're in such a new age of politics, the TV era is dead. You know, the whole polished, like John F. Kennedy put on makeup and like, you know, say the great speeches that like lasted for like 40 years in politics. I don't think we're in that age anymore. I think people crave authenticity wherever it comes from. Derek Dooley would be much more utterly unlikable than Bruce Pearl running for Senate. But I feel like people would buy into his authenticity a little bit more. Derek Dooley would probably be the one guy to give you a straight talk express, right? Like, for instance, you know, when politicians say, I'm going to bring these jobs back to this district right here, and we're going to have so many. Derek Dooley would be the guy to go over there and be like, guys, these jobs aren't coming back. You're not going to get these jobs. He would straight up tell them that, wouldn't he?
Perhaps, maybe open to a fault. You don't want to be open in politics a lot. I think Bruce Pearl would be a far better senator personally, just because of the fact that he's so good with people.
All right, let's play this poll question now.
Yeah, let's go ahead. Who would be the better poll? Who would be the better poll? Who would be the better senator? Who do we have that up there?
Putting it up now.
Okay.
Bruce Pearl or Derek Dooley.
And let's face it, with that whole thing that happened early in his career with Illinois, I mean, that would be. Isn't that an advantage as a politician?
Well, that's why I said Bruce Pearl would be more skilled once he got to Washington than Derek Dooley. I'm saying who would have a better chance of winning, because Derek Dooley, while less likable than Bruce Pearl, is authentic. Now, I'll say this. Part of the skill is faking being authentic. Bruce Pearl, while I think he's fake, I think you would agree that Bruce Pearl is very good at making you believe he's authentic, isn't he?
Yes, I believe that the vast majority of fans do not think of him as fake. I don't think many do. And I would point to when he was fired. I mean, he was fired for lying to the school and lying to the NCAA. You have to make a change there, right?
You do.
I don't know that you and I have ever discussed it. So you agree with that. But I bet 70% of the fans still wanted him to keep the job.
They did. He is a very, and this is why I said he has a better chance of winning. He's a very, why I'm now coming around to, you're right, Bruce Pearl might have a better chance of winning. While I believe in authenticity, Bruce Pearl is one of the people with the rare gift of sounding authentic even when he's not authentic. And you're right. Everybody believed him. I mean, Bruce Pearl, think about this, Dave. Dean Thomas has said he's a snake. And we know he secretly recorded Dean Thomas. You talk about how he kind of basically burned bridges with all of his assistants with the way he took all the buyout money leaving Tennessee at that time. Just lit his relationships on fire. Got caught lying to the NCAA, and yet still, you're right, 70% of Tennessee fans would want him back tomorrow. And he is so skilled at making you believe that he's authentic because he does things like take his shirt off and paint it for a women's basketball game. And it sounds like he's very genuine doing that. He's a natural born cheerleader, which is very good for promoting a program. And yeah, that's a great sales pitch. He's one of the few that, like, if Derek Dooley tries to be fake, you're going to see right through it. He's not good at it. If he's authentically a jerk, you might buy into it. Bruce Pearl is what Butch Jones tried to be.
I would agree with that. He had the X's and O's. He had the X's and O's foundation that Butch Jones didn't have.
Exactly. And he has the intelligence that Butch Jones doesn't have. And so, the combination, but they're equally somewhat sociopaths, right?
No, I could roll with that. I mean, I think Bruce, and we all are to some extent, right, about ourselves.
Yes.
But you can go too far in that regard. I'm not as down on Bruce maybe as you are. I think that he does care about kids and he does try to develop them. I think, though, if he had to choose between winning a national championship or helping 10 kids get to a professional job in which they showed their growth from college, I don't think there's any question about it. He's going to take the championship.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Here's the one other layer to this, though, that we have to point out, because this is the nature of politics. If they both were to run, this is so typical Derek Dooley. This is so typical Derek Dooley to do this, Dave, and it's so funny that he's doing it this way. You know the fundamentals of an election, right? A midterm election, which is when Derek Dooley is going to run, 2026. A midterm election, almost always the party opposite the president does better in midterm elections, with very few exceptions.
It's true.
It's because midterms are usually just a backlash against the president, whoever that is at the time, and the president's party. People want to have a balance of power. Well, in those scenarios, the swing states are going to lean towards the opposite party. So Georgia, for instance, is a swing state. So Georgia in 2026 would be favored to lean Democratic since the president is a Republican. And only Derek Dooley would pick 2026 to run as a Republican in Georgia. As opposed to waiting until 2028, maybe, when he could run.
So where's our poll question stand? And we might adjust that. I wouldn't mind getting Rick Barnes for president. No, no. I think he is too honest. I think he's one of the rare situations in coaching.
I love Rick Barnes, but I think Rick Barnes is the type of politician who would get railroaded when he got to Washington because he wouldn't be able to do the backroom politicking that's necessary. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I mean, it's kind of like what people say, like why a lot of people think Jimmy Carter was a bad president. He was an honest guy who went to Washington and just didn't know how to play the game of politics in the 70s. And a lot of people disagree with this policy. I'm not getting into the policies. I'm saying the way people think of them as leaders in general. I think Rick Barnes would be like that. He's too good. He's too nice of a guy. He'd get railroaded.
Yeah. I can agree with that. Pearl would go scorched earth against Hamas Middle East. That. All right. If Pearl gets elected, and I wonder if he'll actually do this. If Bruce gets elected, Stephen will have a job in the energy sector making $10 million a year.
Okay, let's put this out here. Who is more likely to pass a bill that would help their family wealth? Derek Dooley or Bruce Pearl? Bruce Pearl, right?
Yes.
1,000 times over, isn't he? He's
not even close.
Not even close. Much less likely to think about his constituents and much more likely to think about how this benefits him and his family.
Now, I'm the most critical person of all coaches and their integrity or lack thereof, but I agree with Matt. Matt says true. Rick's too good of a person. I actually agree with that. I think he'd feel so. We talked about grimy earlier. I think he'd feel so grimy, Caleb, that wouldn't want the job any longer. That he might just walk away from.
Yeah, I agree. He would. He would feel. He's the type that he would feel like he needs to take a shower afterwards. You guys ever ask, Jesse Ventura always tells the story. Jesse Ventura was governor of Minnesota in the late 90s. And he said, man, when you're in politics for 4 years, I don't know why people want to do this for so long. You feel so dirty after you've been in it for a little while.
Yep. And he's crazy. You heard some of the stuff about Jesse Ventura? Yeah,
but I mean, he also exposed a lot of stuff about the wrestling business that people didn't want to hear during that time.
Was he the reason that we found out that it wasn't fake?
No. But he was the guy who took on Vince McMahon and won twice in wrestling. So, yeah, he's also the one who tried to unionize wrestling in the 80s. And as he was trying to unionize it, you'll love this. Hulk Hogan undercut him because Hulk Hogan was making more money than all the other wrestlers, so he didn't want a union.
Interesting. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, broadcasting live from Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. Coming up, what do we have left? We're going to get back to the house settlement deal.
Yeah, we'll close with the house settlement because there's some questions that come with this house settlement, and we don't know the answers to. And I'm going to ask all four, and I'll see if Dave has an answer to them.
Okay, here we go. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, broadcasting from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker.
Like a blast from the past, the Super Dealer is back. Look to the skies, Knoxville. The Super Dealer is fighting for price, service, and the American made. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 volume Ford dealer. Save up to $4,350 on a new Ford F-150 XLT, or get into a new Ford Ranger XLT with no payments for 90 days. Come see the Super Dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in fire prevention.
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
Do it, Coop.
Cooper Mays here.
Oh, that's wrong. Oh, yeah, my goodness. I'm going to have button issues.
Frank, like the name, but serious or something. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun, represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
I want to clarify something. Adam from the message board said, watch John Kennedy and tell me Barnes couldn't make it in politics. I'm not saying he couldn't. I'm just saying he wouldn't want to. But you think he couldn't. You said he'd get railroaded.
I think he could get. I think Rick Barnes could actually maybe do state politics to a certain degree, where there's a little bit more honesty among state legislatures fighting for things they believe in. I think once you get to Washington, man, Barnes would get. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Now, I will say this: there are oftentimes high character people who know how to play the game at the same time. Because I mean, look, Rick Barnes is a high character guy who has lasted through every single change made in college basketball over the last 25, 30 years. So maybe he's one of the few that is a high character guy that also knows how to play the game. But you always worry about those things with a guy like Rick Barnes. I mean, it could just, I don't know if he'd be able to handle but honestly, I say this, Dave, that's why I'm realizing Derek Dooley wouldn't make it in the Senate. Derek Dooley couldn't handle the politicking, could he, of politics?
I mean, he can just echo what you just said, but I think he would be a better local state level legislator.
Dooley?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. Because you're right. Dooley you think Dooley knows how to play House of Cards? This dude was a PR nightmare at Tennessee. Like, how would he handle, working in Washington?
Okay. Let's get to 4 Downs, brought to you by Ted Russell Ford, East Tennessee's largest volume dealer. They'll have it, and they hooked me up with my Jeep. I absolutely love it. All right, so let's get into 4 Downs. Cooper, what should we do if we want to be a part of the program?
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
Thanks, Coop.
Coop here. First down.
All right. Will Title IX lawsuits follow? I don't think there's any question.
Regarding the House settlements, biggest questions. These are the biggest questions, yes, surrounding the House settlements. And yes, Title IX lawsuits are going to follow because schools, as they should, are going to devote the money based on the sports that generate revenue. Literally a violation of Title IX. So, I mean, I don't know how in the world this wouldn't follow, because while we all agree on principle that, Joey Aguilar should make more money than a softball player, the softball player has a legal right to sue and say, that's not what the law says. The law says I should get as much as he does given Title IX. So absolutely, lawsuits are going to follow.
What's more likely? This isn't a second down. We'll get to that in a second. But what's more likely to happen? Is it that this House settlement is an utter fiasco disaster, or that Title IX goes away? Because we're starting to run this like a business.
Yeah, but see, Title IX doesn't. What's more likely is Title IX gets restructured. And there have been a lot of calls to restructure Title. Look, Title IX has to exist. I think we all want to see like women's high school sports. We want to see women have those opportunities at the high school level and the college level, to be fair. So it's going to exist, but it's going to have to be restructured. And I don't think there's any way you can not restructure it now.
All right. What's next, Caleb?
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
All right. Second down. What will the roster limits be? Because remember, there is now no longer scholarship limits. There are roster limits. And Texas A&M last year had 143 players on their roster.
How do they manage that?
NIL. Bunch of walk-ons.
Oh. Okay, that's strange to me.
Yeah. Like, remember back in
the Bear Bryant days. Oh, did I just steal that?
I was going to say the Nebraska days, where Nebraska had 300 walk-ons, basically. And they just out-conditioned everybody in college football. Out-conditioned everybody in college football in the 90s to dominate.
Yeah, I don't have any way of guessing. I didn't know A&M's roster was that big.
Yeah.
Gosh. I mean, and again, how do you enforce that? Are you saying no walk-ons?
No. You can have walk-on. There's no scholarship limits. So it doesn't matter who's on scholarship and who's a walk-on. It's just there are roster limits now. So rather than say, because like back in the day, as you know, Dave, you could have, you have 85 scholarship players, but then you could have however many walk-ons you wanted, right? They're saying they'll probably up it to like, you can have 120 players on the team. Doesn't matter how many scholarships you give out, just 120 players, period, end of story.
Good point by Derek. What did he have to say?
Title IX protects women's volleyball shorts.
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here.
That's a very good point, Derek.
What's next, Caleb?
All right, third.
I had a guy that I worked with one time that only dated volleyball players when he.
Really?
Yes.
Do you ever remember the 2004 Olympics where George Bush was like with the beach volleyball team and the Americans, and he did a little thumbs up, and it was right as the volleyball player was like bending over to like grab a volleyball, and it looked like he was thumbs upping her. And the funny thing is, like, if this were Bill Clinton or Donald Trump, I would be like, oh, they're thumbs upping the butt. But like, if it's George Bush, I'm like, no, actually, I think George Bush is a happily married man who like never cheats on his wife. Honestly, I genuinely believe that about Bush.
I was doing a live TV show, and I watched later in the afternoon to see how I did. It was a sports source with John Pennington. And I remember this young lady came and she brought a bunch of food. And I looked at the food. It was part of a promotion for a restaurant. And she had the food out there. And I looked at it like, looks good. But there on live TV and DVR'd for all time, it looked like I was looking at her rear and going, pretty good. This is the word. I was like starving in all sincerity. All right. Caleb, what's next?
All right. So third down.
Center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
What does this mean for smaller conferences and non-revenue sports? Like, is Group of 5 football just going to die? Because like, if this rule applies to all college football programs, now they can opt in or opt out. If they opt out, they're not going to get any talent whatsoever. They'll be as bad as Division II at the Group of 5 level. If they opt in, they could bankrupt their program. Something's got to give, right?
I think you're going to. I will say this. I'm not sure how many go away or to what extent they go away, but I think you would agree that the days of Appalachian State beating Michigan at the Big House, those are over.
Yeah,
There's
I don't think that's
such a
possible.
disparity between smaller schools and I don't know. Does the North Dakota states of the world, do they make it?
That's my question. I mean, I don't know if they do. And here's the thing. You're right. It's going to get to a point, and I warned people about this when the playoff expanded happened. You got this automatic bid for Group of 5 schools. Fine, let them get their little automatic bid, and they won't complain. And maybe they'll pull an upset here or there. But Dave, if this goes the way I think it's going to go 10 years from now, they won't even pull off an upset. They're just going to get wrecked every time they go to the playoff. Honestly, I mean, the gap is going to be so big.
Okay, let's make this a poll question and dive into this. And I want as many comments as we can get. Does this affect your fandom at all? It's fourth down. Four Downs brought to you by Ted Russell Ford Lincoln as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studios on Parkside Drive and out on Kingston Pike. They are absolutely unbelievable. You'll be so happy when you drive off that lot with a brand new vehicle. Four Downs brought to you by Ted Russell, the super dealer.
Like a blast from the past, the Super Dealer is back. Look to the skies, Knoxville. The Super Dealer is fighting for price, service, and the American-made. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 volume Ford dealer. Save up to $4,350 on a new Ford F-150 XLT, or get into a new Ford Ranger XLT with no payments for 90 days. Come see the Super Dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike.
What's fourth down, Caleb?
Fourth down.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. Fourth down.
Will this new House settlement affect your college football fandom?
Well, we're not the greatest to ask of that. We do this for a living. But I want comments on the message board as much as we can, and let's make that a poll question. Do you believe it will affect fandom?
No. And I think everybody saying that it will affect their fandom is not being honest with themselves. Okay, I'm dead serious on this. If you would let your fandom, if you would turn away from college football because the players you cheer for are now making a few extra bucks directly from the school that's been making millions off them, how much of a college football fan were you to begin with? That's not how this is going to work. It's not going to affect your fandom. When fourth down happened, if Nico Iamaleava, if that saga didn't affect your fandom, nothing will when it comes to player payments. Okay? Because, like I said, on 4th and 1, when Tennessee's playing Alabama, you're not going to worry about how much is Peyton Lewis making. You're going to worry about, is Josh Heupel going to get him the ball in the right play to convert the first down? That's the only thing that's going to be on your mind in October on 4th and 1 when Tennessee's playing Alabama and they have the ball.
I don't know, Caleb. Let's get to the poll question and get some results on that. I really believe that some people, some old school people, not like you and me, but some old school people will, you're talking to somebody who remembers, this is not that long ago, some of the hidden racism that was in sports that you can't have. I remember one media member telling me that the 98 team had too many black players. And I was like, are you insane?
I do think that's the least white national championship team of all time.
Yeah, but I mean, so what? I mean, it doesn't really matter. And I actually took a college class one time. Are you familiar with the term stacking?
No.
Okay, well, that was done from kids when they were 7 or 8 years old. They would put black players at running back more often than quarterback because they thought it was a thinking position, which was the most idiotic thing I'd ever heard. I guess what I'm telling you is it hasn't been that long since there's been some really backwards thinking, and I can't help but think that it will affect some people. Long term, no. Derek brings up the greatest point. And this is kind of how I feel. I feel like we discuss this NIL portal and NCAA Congress stuff way more than actual sports. That's my issue. I agree with that. At the end of the day, you're probably right. It continues to grow. The population continues to grow. More fans continue to grow. I just can't help but think there's not going to be some old school people with, in my opinion, some backwards thinking. I think the athletes deserve to get paid and have for the entire time. But Caleb, I can't help that it'll turn some people off. What's our poll question say?
Poll question says 55% say yes, it'll affect their fandom. 45% say no. I understand your point with the old school people, but Dave, let me go to this. You actually went this route somewhat because so talking about race, let's just talk about race back in the 70s for a minute. You and I both know Tennessee integrated pretty early, at Kentucky integrated early, but the Deep South SEC schools were very hostile to integration for their football teams. Very hostile. And Bear Bryant wanted to integrate Alabama, and the administration would not let him, and the fans did not want it to happen. So you know what Bear Bryant did, right?
I don't.
He scheduled a game against USC when Sam Cunningham was at USC, knowing his team was going to get his you-know-what beat. And Sam Cunningham, black player for USC, destroyed Alabama, humiliated them. Alabama recruited their first black player the next year, and then the team was integrated in 2 years. Bear Bryant knew that people may have these old, long-standing principles, but if it comes to trying to win football games on Saturday, they'll throw those principles to the wayside in a heartbeat. So there were racists that were hardcore racists that were Alabama fans, and one day they woke up and they said, I want to win at football. I'm no longer racist. That happened.
Super chat, Timothy, what do you got?
Collective bargaining is better. Okay, I knew it was a bad idea when we started to pay when we started paying a play $1 million and can't throw the ball like Montana or Steve Young and can't read coverages in defense. Yeah, that is true. That is true. But like at the same time, I think collective bargaining helps to a certain degree. People like Nico have to honor somewhat of their contracts to this point.
Well, I mean, listen. To think that Tennessee or any other school has done everything perfectly correct in this massive change in NIL is kidding yourself. Caleb, I mean,
Yes.
there's nobody that's done everything right.
No, there's nobody that's done everything right. And it was hard to figure out. It was hard to navigate from the start. And it's going to continue to be hard to navigate because, again, this is the Wild West and there's no way to regulate it right now. And I don't think it's possible to regulate. This is Las Vegas being founded by the gang leaders of the 1880s.
Tell you what this is going to turn into. It's going to turn into the same thing that I spent the vast majority of my college or my career talking about, and that was NCAA missteps, NCAA violations. It's going to be the same thing. It might have a different acronym and it might have another governing body, but that's where we're going to be. And Derek, to play off your point, what we're going to be talking about in the very near future are those Albert Means situations, because you're going to have, well, let me ask you this. With NIL, are they going to mandate that you actually have to do something to earn the money? Or can I just walk up to a guy and give him $100 because I feel like it?
It depends. Well, that's the thing. I guess that's what the third party is going to regulate to a certain degree. I just think they've opened the door so arbitrarily for them to regulate it that way. I do think you can sign contracts with NIL. I mean, you're allowed to do that. Schools and boosters, many of them were stupid and didn't do it. Because spoiler alert, guys, rich billionaires aren't as smart as you thought they were. And so, I mean, they were jumping into this without any idea. Many of them, I kid you not, and we had Will West talk about it. Dave, I cannot believe some of them thought they were going to get a return on their investment for NIL. I mean, I'm not a business guy. I'm just a regular guy, talking college football on a YouTube channel. And I could have told you from the start, these people weren't going to get a return on their investment for NIL money. And I don't know much about business. So
yeah. Will's been nice enough to point out that I think I'm the only one that was successful in NIL.
Yeah.
Literally. And I go back to, I have trouble believing that an athlete in general, just because they're an athlete, should tell me what deodorant to use or anything like that. I also have more of a problem with it being an 18, 19, 20-year-old athlete that's half my age.
Yeah, true. How do they know what deodorant to use?
I mean, I don't walk up to an 18, 19-year-old and go, what kind of car should I buy? So why would I do it just because they're an athlete? What's our poll question? Where are we?
Will this affect your fandom? Now 54% are saying no, 46% are saying yes. So I think that convinced some people, Dave.
You may have. All right. Did we get to the collective bargaining super chat?
Yes, we did.
Got to that. I'm not exactly sure what what you mean by that, to be honest with you, Timothy. Are you just saying in terms of that collective bargaining in the NFL? I don't understand how this is much different.
Yeah, no. Well, what I think he's talking about is like collective bargaining will make it better because it looks like there's some obligations they'll have to fulfill now.
Gotcha. All right. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. What do you got planned for the website later today?
I'm going to talk a little bit more about the NIL moves, and I got a column popping now in my head on whether or not Joey Aguilar could be the next Hendon Hooker.
I like that.
That's standing out.
I like that. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, broadcasting live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. For Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.